Hi everyone, welcome to Play with Ray, and to skip or by, here's why. Let's first dive into the good stuff. So first off, I have to say the graphics, they look really good. The characters have loads of details, and the same goes for the surrounding area. I have to say in all honesty that I'm not 100% convinced that the same applies when it comes to the facial expressions, which look a bit stiff and odd, in my opinion. And especially for a game like this, which really depends on that. They could have done better, but all in all, the graphics are amazing. They are really amazing. So secondly, if you feel like being middle in a thriller or in a horror movie, then you will really get that feeling from this game. It's quite immersive if you're open for that. And I have to say that the graphics, they really enhance that living the story experience, and the audio works very well too. So if you're open for this kind of immersion, then it will grab you. It will be interesting to dive into it. And thirdly and lastly, I have to say that what I liked is that the characters are very different, and it's really interesting to see how they will develop once the story progresses, because not everyone seems who they appear to be. And added to this mix is, of course, the suspense of a killer on the loose, some murders that took place in the area, and of course the tragedy that befell the group itself, which you will see at the beginning of the game. So yeah, that's for the good stuff. And for the bad, well, first off, I would like to say that the game basically to me felt just like pressing a key when you're prompted to do so. So there aren't any variations in the gameplay. There sometimes is an option to get the pressing sequence slow or fast, but it's all too easy to have a charm to it. The game is, of course, story driven, but some of the mechanics to me are just silly. For example, I spent a couple of minutes trying to feed a squirrel, but I just couldn't get the mechanic to do so working correctly. So yeah, for me, that was well, it's not necessary to be wasting my time on that. And when I finally managed to get it done, it didn't have any impact on the story whatsoever. So it didn't feel at all as anything rewarding to do, and that goes for most mechanics you use in this game. I do not feel like you have any freedom or say in where you are going in this game. So they might have just as well just shown me the whole movie instead of keeping pressing keys all the time. So secondly, what I didn't like about this game is basically the movement of some of the main characters. To me, it looks a bit weird. They look like they're permanently drunk or like they're puppets on a string. And for me, for a game that really relies heavily on the main actors, on the main characters, they should have done a better job. And also, when you play, you are more or less looking over their shoulder, and felt that the characters were too much in my face. They were too close on my screen, and they were often blocking the view of the screen and making it sometimes really difficult to see where you were supposed to be looking at and which clues you need to be gathering. So yeah, for the third thing I didn't like too much about this game is that it doesn't really feel like a game to me. It's more like a movie. There's no real joy in any of the actions you have to do, and everything seems to be scripted. And also it does lean heavy on the fact that every choice that will make an impact on the story, the so-called butterfly effect as they call it, but to me it did not really seem to matter whatever choice I would make. So yeah, sure, some of the relationships with some of the characters would deteriorate or improve, but for the main storyline, I felt that it really didn't matter at all which choice I would make. So there's not much of a thrill which you would get from achieving, because it is also scripted. There's really nothing you can achieve by your own skills or your own actions. So it is a bit boring to me. Of course, I understand that it is basically a cinematic game, so it makes sense in that way. But for me, well, it was too boring to really be calling a PC game. So yeah, that's about the bad. So let's finish off with my, well, should you skip this game or buy this game? So let's dive into that. This is, of course, a totally story-driven horror story, but it didn't really manage to give me any rise of my heartbeat. I never really got excited or got scared in this game. For me, the story starts off more like a romantic story rather than a horror story. And it all seems a bit much of the same to be going on, but it does slowly pick up and it will get a bit more spookier and interesting. But in my case, I had to play for over an hour or longer before that happened, which was really way too long, because I was really getting a bit bored with the game, even though it looks amazing. Really, the graphics are very beautiful, but on the other hand, it doesn't apply to everything, especially the movement and the faces of some characters. They looked a bit off to me. As for the story, it really does have its charm. And there are different elements that drive this story. There's the fate that befell the two sisters, which you'll see in the beginning of the game. There's a murder on the loose, and they're all different kind of characters, but are they who they claim to be? So that gives some suspense to the story, to the game. But for me, the game itself, it's way too story-driven, and it's way too much of clicking on elements and using the scripted mechanics, which for me did not help to get that feeling like I was playing a real game, as opposed to just watching a movie and going along with it. But then again, I must admit that the interactions do help to immerse you in the story and give you a real feeling you're part of the story. So they also mentioned like the butterfly effect, but to me it didn't really make an obvious impact on me. So everything you will choose would have an impact on the story, on the storyline, and would presumably take you on a different path, but I did not feel that happening. So yeah, it impacts the relationships between characters, but to me it really did not influence the path the game itself as a whole was taking. So I felt that whatever choice I made, the story would be the same. So yeah. So in conclusion, I think if you like a cinematic story, and which has a taste of horror, then yeah, congrats. Then you should try this game. Then you found it. But if you want a real game where your choices have an obvious impact, then this is probably not the game for you. So should you skip it or buy it? It really depends on what kind of game you're looking for. Do you want something more action-driven? Then probably I would skip it. But if you're into a real story where you're taken along into that story, then I should consider buying it, because it is an interesting, appealing story, and it has gorgeous graphics. So yeah, that's basically it for my review. I hope you appreciate my honest thoughts and my honest opinions about this game. If you have anything else you'd like to add, please do so using the comment section. And if you appreciate this review, or in general what I'm doing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. It would really help me out. So thanks again for listening to me and hanging out with me, and hopefully see you next time.